Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode number 30 of 365 that I've got planned as a tribute to the great man, the big man, Tony Robbins. Today, what I'd like to do on this wet, dreary, rainy day here in Sydney is to continue our journey of learning and sharing all that I've learned over the years from Tony Robbins. In previous episodes, I've reminded everybody that I've been to 3 UPWs, Unleash the Power Within, 2 in the mid-90s as a 30-something-year-old, in 94 and 95, and this year in 2023 I also attended UPW, and I'd booked tickets back in 2020, but because of COVID, those seminars, those sessions, those UPWs were postponed for obvious reasons. The whole world was locked down and we couldn't really plan, organise and do anything, and our futures looked pretty bleak as what Sydney looks like today on this dreary day. So 2020 and 2021 we didn't have UPW. 2022 nothing happened at all, and I was worried, and everybody was worried, that Tony Robbins may never come back to Australia. But to his credit, and to the credit of Success Resources Australia, Tony Robbins did come back for a UPW this year, but sadly it looks as if this year was the last ever opportunity for anybody to go to UPW and to learn from the great man himself, because as he mentions time and time again, virtual is okay. Now, using virtual technology, video technology, where you sit in your house and you're able to dial into and watch over the internet and participate live, but from a virtual perspective, it's okay. But nothing comes clear to the experience, to the energy, and the overall aura of being there in person. And this year we had 9,000 people from 69 different countries descend on this beautiful city, my city of Sydney, to participate in UPW 23, and it was an absolute blast. It was as good, if not better, than what I remember it from the mid-90s. In fact, I'd forgotten how exciting, how overwhelming, how transformational this thing could be, and the discomfort that you go through at the same time. But Tony Robbins, to his credit, is true to his word. I can say, after 30 years, that the material that is covered in UPW is authentic. It hasn't changed all that much, so much so that I recalled most of the material as being represented virtually word for word. There were a few changes, but not very many changes, which just goes to show that it is authentic, it is wonderful, and it is real. So thank you very much for listening to me, and we'll chat again very, very soon. So what I want to do today is I want to continue along our journey of learning, where we take morsels, where we take lessons, and we attach the unknown to what we already know. Because I know myself that the art of learning, Anthony Robbins reminds us that the art of learning is the simple task of attaching the unknown to the known, attaching what we don't know to something that we do know, and doing a compare, a contrast, baselining it, benchmarking it, and just figuring it out and taking that additional, that new pattern and storing it away in our conscious, in our subconscious, so that we can use another day. Because as Anthony Robbins reminds us, life is but a pattern. It's cyclical. It's continuous patterns being revisited, being looked at, being compared, being used, and the more patterns that we're able to accumulate into our inventory of things that work and things that don't work, the better off we're going to be, because life goes through a cycle. History repeats itself. It doesn't repeat itself exactly, like we're not that naive to think that everything happens exactly the same way. But sooner or later, the patterns of old relive themselves, and the outcomes are fairly predictable. So we need to invest knowing that this is how life is, this is how life has always been. The struggles that you and I have, our parents had, our grandparents had, our uncles and aunts, and future generations have had the similar sort of issues. The ancient Greeks used theatre. They documented things. They categorized things just to show us that 2,500 years ago, things weren't all that much different to what they were today and what they are today. So what can we learn today? What can we add? What morsel can we savor and learn from? And what I'd love to do today is to go through the 3 pillars of success that Anthony Robbins always talks about. And the pillars of success, the 3 pillars of success, are basically very, very simple. It's not rocket science. Nothing is rocket science. And as Jim Rohn, who is Anthony Robbins' mentor, said at a seminar that I attended back in the 90s, he said that it's easy, really, really easy to be successful. But guess what, he said, the reason why everybody is not successful is because it's easier, much easier, to not be successful. It's easier to be lazy. It's easier to dabble. It's easier not to be committed. It's easier not to be full in and all in. So the message is very, very clear. It's not all that hard to be the very, very best you can possibly be. But you need to do 3 things, or these 3 things may help you on your journey, knowing that we all have a different fate. Just because it worked for your father, your mother, your uncle, your aunt, your grandparents, your mates at school, your church mates, everybody else, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you the next time you try it. Just because it hasn't worked in the past, similarly, doesn't mean it's going to work again if you try it again, but also it doesn't mean that it's not going to work again, because the more times we try, the more doors we knock on, the closer we are to a yes, the closer we are to success, the closer we are to a breakthrough. So this is the key message that Anthony Robbins tries to convey to the millions and millions of people that he talks to through his books, through his seminars, through his tapes, his vlogs, and through his everyday touching of people in the world in the way that he does. So the first pillar of success that we're going to focus on today is the importance of focus, having a laser focus and knowing exactly what you want. Anthony Robbins said that his mentor Jim Rohn would always tell him, the why is more important than the how. The why comes before the how. Once you have a compelling and clear why, then you will do whatever you have to do to get what you need and what you want. Just like a baby, just like a toddler, when they start to crawl or they start to walk, you don't tell them how to walk. They determine that they need to walk because they see something that they dearly want, and they reach for it and they start going for it. And you can throw all the barriers in their way, but they'll find a way to go over, under, through, and get to where they need to be. So having a clear focus, a laser focus, and Anthony Robbins reminds us that clarity is power. If you clearly know, if you clearly see what you want, if you're able to clearly articulate in words with feeling what you want, then you're going to be in a better position, because you can't stop a man who knows where they're going. You can't stop a woman who knows where they're going. You can't stop a person who knows where they're going, but they need to know where they're going. They can't just be drifting, not knowing. So as we said before, we all have a fate and nothing is guaranteed. God's will is God's will. God's will be done here on earth. So we need to keep on trying. We need to have a laser type focus. We need clarity, because where your focus goes, as Anthony Robbins says, your energy flows. So you're able to manifest, magically manifest what you desire by focusing on it, by knowing what it is. So that's the first pillar. And I remember back in the 90s, Anthony Robbins didn't do it this time, but he said that if you're looking for a life partner, you need to know in your mind's eye who that partner may be, what they look like, what they think like, how they behave, where they hang out, where they'd possibly live. You need to have that as a starting point. And unless you do the exercise and sit down and try and articulate as clearly as possible who this ideal partner is, and then ask yourself the question, for this ideal partner that I'm looking for, who is the ideal partner that they're looking for? Because you may not be that person. You may not be hanging out with those sorts of people or in that circle. So you need to do the legwork. You need to ask yourself the question, and to clearly be able to see and to articulate as simply and as clearly as possible. And that is why it's important in our lives to have a rich vocabulary, because our lifestyle, the quality of our life, the quality of our experiences is linked to the quality of our communication, the quality of the words that we use to nuance and to identify and to explain what we're looking for and what we've seen in order to know if we've found it or not. So we need to be clear and accurate in our communication style, not only to other people, but also to ourselves. I remember Anthony Robbins talking about the fact that Aristotle would always say, if you can't clearly explain something, if you don't know it well enough to be able to clearly and simply explain something so that a 3-year-old child can understand it, then obviously you don't know it well enough. So having the ability to clearly articulate to yourself first and then to others is really important. So having a compelling why, a why that will attract you to where you want to go, that'll keep you up at night and get you up early in the morning, is paramount to any success. And that's why people who have hobbies are people who are fulfilled, because they've got something that they don't have to do. They've got something that they choose to do, and it gets them up early in the morning, as we said, and keeps them up late at night, and it may not even pay for its way, it may not be financially viable for them, but it's fulfilling and it has a compelling why, something that drives action, that creates momentum, that enables you to savor and to see and to taste things well before they come into your field of vision, and to be actualized and materialized through the magic of our lives, the magic of manifestation. So the first item, as we said, the first item that Anthony Robbins teaches us is the importance of having a clarity of focus. And he says that you can be clear and you can have the best visualization in the world, but the next thing you need are time-tested and proven strategies on how to get from your vision to where you need to be. You need to have a roadmap. You need to learn the skills to be able to achieve what you're doing. And this is where Anthony Robbins talks about the importance of modeling, of finding, of identifying the people who have achieved, who have already achieved what you're looking for. Because as we learn from Anthony Robbins, nothing in the world is new. The problems, the challenges, the desires that we all have are nothing new. Millions and millions of people have had our problems. Millions of people have had our desires. Billions of people. No, it's the way life is. But what we need to do is to understand it's not new. It's just new to us. We're only discovering it for the first time. It's always been there. It's not new. It's always been there. So this is where Anthony Robbins says that you need to try and identify and find the best coach that you can afford. Because by having the best coach, by modeling yourself on somebody who has already succeeded, you're saving lots and lots and lots of time in a world where time is critical. A lot of people think that they can just muddle through life through trial and error, but Anthony Robbins reminds us that trial and error doesn't work. It may work for some, but you can't waste your time making mistake after mistake and think and hope that you'll get there one day, unless you're doing something which is really, really innovative. Thomas Edison reminds us. Colonel Sanders of Kentucky Fried Chicken or KFC reminds us that you need to fail a lot of times to be able to achieve your ultimate dreams. And the reality is that not everybody is a Thomas Edison, not everybody is a Colonel Sanders, not everybody has the willpower to continue to be disappointed. We don't all have the same drive as these significant leaders in their field. So what we can do is, rather than try and reinvent the wheel every time and go through trial and error, where most people will give up anyway, you need to get linked into a peer group of people who are like-minded, who can cajole you, who can push you, who can pull you, who can challenge you and support you at the same time from occasion to occasion, so that you can learn from the best. You can figure out what those half dozen things are that you need in order to be the best you can possibly be, and to leverage that so that you can be and you can achieve your dreams as effectively and as efficiently as possible. Of course, as Anthony Robbins says, if you've got the wrong strategy, you're going to fail. Now, you can't be running west, as Anthony Robbins says, hoping to see a sunrise, or you can't be running east in order to see a sunset. You need to know the basics. You need to have a good strategy. You need to have a game plan. You need to have a process, to believe in the process, to invest in the process, and to follow the process. So the first two pillars of success, according to the big man, to the great man Anthony Robbins, is first, you need crystal clear laser focus, so you know what you're trying to do and to know that you're on the right path, to know when you've got there because you know what you're looking for. The second thing is to have the right strategies, to be able to have somebody who's been there before. Admittedly, not everybody's been to the future, but there are people who have experienced firsthand the different patterns in life, and they know the 10,000 ways that it doesn't work for them, and they know the one way that it works for them. They know the half dozen things that they need to be above average at in order to master their particular trade or their particular field of expertise. So you need to be able to tap into them in order to save time, to save energy, to save money, and to get to where you want to get to much more effectively. And once you become effective, this is very, very important as well, something that Anthony Robbins reminds us of. The reason why we need to go all in is that we need to be effective before we become efficient. And the reason why a lot of people aren't successful is that they don't go all in. They don't burn their boats. They leave themselves open to failure by not being fully committed, fully immersed in what they're doing. Anthony Robbins reminds us that we need to be obsessed with what we do. David Goggins reaffirms this. Unless you have a level of OCD, unless you have an obsessive sort of personality type, then you're not going to have the drive and the ability to get through the tough times that we all need to get through, because life is variable. Life and people are habitual in our behaviours, in our actions, in all the things that we do. We need to be able to get through those tough times, and those tough times need us to be obsessed to a certain point without being over obsessed. But when you're running your own business, unless you have a level of obsession, then you're not going to be effective. And once you become effective, this is a key point. Once you become effective, and you've got to be effective first, you've got to get the results first, regardless of what it costs. Once you become effective and know what it takes to get the outcomes that you desire, then and only then can you step back and start to become efficient, saying, well, I know what I need to do to get the outcomes that I need. What can I do less of? How can I play with this strategy so that I can continue to get the outcomes without putting in as much input, so that I can move on to something else, I can delegate it to somebody else, and continue living life and being fulfilled without being overly tied up in the certain things in our lives, knowing very much that we can achieve everything in our lives. There's nothing that we can't do. The only problem is, for most of us, we can't do it at the same time. We need to do things at different times. We need to prioritize things in our lives. And this is where Anthony Robbins moves to the third pillar of the 3 pillars of success model, where he reminds people that in order to succeed, you need to have the focus, you need to have the strategies, you need to have the roadmap, the process to be able to follow, but you also need to resolve any internal conflicts that you have, the fears, the uncertainties, the doubts that come with every new endeavour. We haven't been to the future. It's all new to us. We're discovering it for the first time. But along the way, we have fear, uncertainty and doubt that we've either developed ourselves through our own insights, given that we all get to live a different past, a different present, I am here, you're somewhere else, and a different future. And we have different experiences along the way. We have different slithers of reality that we all get to experience. And those slithers of reality, when concatenated and added together, form our worldview. And no two people have the same slithers of reality that they can compare and contrast and use as the lens to see the world through. So Anthony Robbins says that the fears, uncertainty and doubts that we have are things that are figments of our imagination, things that we've come up with, but they are also things that we have inherited from other people, from our parents, our grandparents, our school friends, our workmates, our culture, the media. There are many, many ways, many places in which we inherit our fears, our uncertainty, our doubts, our view of the world. And we need to be careful, we need to be selective, we need to be deliberate in what we allow into our minds, because it can infect us in a positive way, but could also infect us in a negative way. So we need to be careful who we hang out with, because as Anthony Robbins reminds us, we end up becoming the mean average of the half dozen people that we spend most time with. Sooner or later, we start to talk like them. We start to behave like them. We start to believe in the things that they believe in. We start to act like them. So you need to be cognizant. You need to be aware of the impact of the half dozen people that you spend most time with, what that impact is having on you, and to invest in being associated and surrounded by the people, not all the time, that are going to help shape you in a positive way. So as Anthony Robbins says, that we're going to have many internal conflicts. It's called cognitive dissonance that we're going to need to deal with. And unless we deal with it, it's going to deal us issues and problems. And it's these problems that people have, these fears, these irrational fears, that impact and infect their lives in ways that are negative, in ways that are not going to help them in any way, shape or form. So we need to be strong. We need to be like Ulysses, and to tie ourselves to the post, to the mast post, and fill everybody's ears with wax, and just to do what we have to do, to be tempted but to not be tempted, and to learn how to manage and to be the captain of our ships. So this cognitive dissonance, these unresolved problems that people have, need to be sorted out, I guess, is the key message from Anthony Robbins. We need to think in a productive way. We need to live with positive expectancy in order to get the most out of our lives. So this is really, really key, this third pillar. We need to get rid of, or we need to leverage and work with the fears that we have. As Anthony says, that you can't fight fear because it'll fight you back. You can't allow fear to take over you because it will destroy you. But you need to use that fear in a way that, like in martial arts with Aikido, you need to use its energy to rechannel its energy so that you can make the most of it, to use that energy for your benefit. So they're the three key pillars. So let's just summarize them and let's step through them one more brief time, just to make sure that we fully understand it. Pier number one, in order to be successful, we need to have clarity. We need to have a laser focus, because where your focus goes, your energy flows. So you need to help yourself in order to gain prosperity and not to be distracted, because distraction whilst it happens to everybody, can be so debilitating to a person who doesn't have the motivation to be able to focus. The second thing we need is we need the right coaches. We need the right mentors. We need the right peer group. And the third thing is we need to conquer our fears, our irrational fears that have been either developed by ourselves through how we have seen the world and the experiences that we've had in our past, or we've inherited from someone else, from our culture, from our workmates, from the media, and we need to keep on and hold on to the things that serve us and work with us and for us, and let go of all the stuff that just gets us frustrated and sends us in a loop. And it's those three things that we need to use to help ourselves, and it's those three things that we also need to teach our children, our grandchildren, and future generations in terms of the formula for success, knowing very well that it only takes a little bit of effort to get a big result. We need to identify the half dozen skills, the half dozen things that we need to do, and focus on those. Everybody's good at something, but in order to be a leader in your field, in order to be the very, very best, you need to be above average in half a dozen or so different skill sets, different areas of your life. So we need to work on the things that we're strong at to maintain and keep that strength. But we also need to work on the things that we're not good at, to lift it. And to get from a 3 to a 5 doesn't need as much effort as what it takes to get from a 9 to a 9.5. So you can make small incremental changes to those half dozen skill sets, and the output is significant. Just like Tony Robbins tells us, you can take 2 oxen and yoke them together, and their output, their power, by being combined with another ox, is significantly higher and bigger than just one ox on its own. You can get a 10 by sort of improvement in power by joining things together. So if you can get incremental improvements in those half dozen skill sets that you need to be successful in business, in health, in your personal life, regardless of where you look at it, if you work on those half dozen things and make small incremental changes, then you can get a massive sort of change, a massive outcome, much more bigger than what you would ever have hoped to have achieved through the power of synergy. Synergy is something that Tony Robbins talks about a lot over the years, being able to combine your skills, being able to combine energy to create a tsunami of outcomes, to make a tsunami of energy, and massive results come from massive action. So we need to do things. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of all that I've learned from Tony Robbins over the years, where we've gone through the 3 pillars of success. It's been an interesting morning. It's overcast. I'm actually going to a rally today at Belmore Park from 7 till about 11, and then going to work. And this rally is to raise awareness of silicosis, a disease that a lot of young people are getting, working in the manufactured stone industry, where this fine particles of dust find their way into our lungs and to workers' lungs, and also to the public's lungs by it being blown around, and it causes serious terminal illness. So this is all about raising awareness, and today we're going to make a noise, we're going to make a sound, and we're going to raise awareness about this new, it's called the new asbestos. And whereas asbestos would take 30 years to kill somebody, silicosis takes but 6 months. So once you know that you've got it, then the debilitating effects on your respiratory system, creates cancer, is terrible. So we need to be careful and to ban these products, this manufactured stone, and this is what the CFMEU is endeavouring to do in conjunction with the government by raising awareness and just getting people to be safer by using products that don't cause issues, life-threatening issues. Anyway, take care, we'll chat again. Yassas, and bye for now from this most beautiful city of Sydney on this cloudy spring day here in Sydney town. Yassas, and thanks for listening. Bye for now.